This is Do It for a Living, your source for inside information on the future of automotive performance.
I'm driven, to at least try to improve it a little by little each time, not in it for a sprint. We've been doing this for a few years now, and I plan to be doing it for many more years.
What's holding you back from starting or growing your business into what it can be? Well, if you're listening to this, it's not a lack of information. What you're about to hear is all you need to get motivated and start making waves. Do It for a Living podcast details the journey of today's true players in their own words. Find out how they broke out so you can too. The time is now. The time is always now.
Welcome back. Today we've got Jason Dienhart from Global Time Attack. Global Time Attack is a racing series. It's actually grown and shrunk and grown again, and I think he's doing really well right now. And so he's been primarily on the west coast of the United States, but now they have gone back to the East Coast, and they have one in Nala as well. So they've kind of all over the United States again, which is really cool. It allows people to get out and go racing, and it's all time attack stuff. So it's you can kind of run what you brung, and you don't have to have all the crazy safety equipment. But how are you doing, Jason?
I'm doing well.
Cool. I'm really glad. We've met in person a couple times, and I've had cars at your events before, and it's really fun. I mean, they are really cool events, and I'm really glad you're able to give us some time to talk about it and, kind of tell us about how it's all got started and tell us about yourself and, kind of give us all this information that I've never really had the chance to hear as well, but all our listeners will now be able to get to listen to as well. So, why don't we go ahead and get started, Jason, and go ahead and tell us about yourself. How did you get involved in, I guess, time attack or racing or cars in general, and just kind of take us back to when you were a kid up to like when you started GTA?
Sure. First off, I want to say thank you, Kevin, for your support and having me on doing this podcast. I really appreciate it. I'm always open to, trying to spread the word about what we do with Global Time Attack as a sanctioning body and a time attack series, and just time attack in general as being a good outlet for people that want to step their game up in terms of, HPDE days and things of that nature and track days, and you hit the nail on the head. You're not competing for corners or against each other, so you don't need as much safety equipment, so it's a lot easier to get into. And theoretically, since you're not running against the cars and competing for corners, your car should stay intact and free of damage a lot more often than it would in a wheel-to-wheel situation. So, I definitely feel it's a great way to get into a higher level of sports car racing and compete for lap times where you're competitive. So there's something that you're always striving for to better, and against other people. So the competition, of course, makes it that much greater.
And it is very competitive, too, I might add.
Yeah, it really is. That's what's been so much fun about it is how competitive that it is and how serious that people do take it. So it makes it a lot of fun for myself and for the crew that helps me put these things on, because it just brings, especially when we do, the one at the end of the year, in November, there's just this level of excitement and just all this anticipation built up, before the sessions go. And it's just, I can't imagine how the drivers are able to stay calm and go out there and do what they do, because I'm nervous just watching them, hands sweating and stuff like that. So, it's a good time. Myself, though, I guess I'm kind of like a product of my environment. I grew up in Southern California, Orange County to be exact, actually in Garden Grove, California, right near an area that's called Little Saigon, right near an area that's called Koreatown in Orange County over there. Uh-huh. When I was in high school, the cool cars, and this was like I started high school in 89, graduated in 93. The cool cars in the parking lot were 88 to 89 CRXs, Honda CRXs, EF hatchbacks, the occasional, 90 to 93 Integra, or even like, the 86 to 89 Integras, lowered, whether people were just chopping springs, putting exhaust systems on them, things like that. And it just really caught my eye as something different. At one point, my father had a 3 Series BMW. I think it was like a 1984 318. It wasn't a big deal of a fast car, but to me, being a young kid, sitting shotgun in it, and my dad driving like 100 plus down PCH in Laguna Beach or Newport Coast or something like that, and he'd call it the 100-mile-an-hour zone, and I'd love it every time we went to the beach down there. I wanted to do the 100-mile-an-hour zone, and I just always loved driving fast or, being involved with fast cars. And whether if it was German cars or Asian imports. I kind of just had more of, some type of a natural way towards those types of cars, more so than like muscle cars and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
A good friend of mine I grew up with happens to be a Japanese kid, or was a kid. Now we're old men, but he would always have options magazines inside his house from trips to Japan. And we would look at the circuit racers, which is similar to what I do now.
Yeah.
With Global Time Attack and, all the cool liveries on all the different cars and whatnot, predominantly Hondas. And I just thought that they were the coolest things ever. And I just always wanted to get one. And first chance that I could, in 1995, I got a brand new Honda Civic hatchback SI last year of, the cool SI hatchbacks, I think, the EG, the egg one. And man, I didn't even take it home yet. Took it straight to my buddy's house, lowered it. I already had an auto power roll cage for it. Took the interior from behind me out. Had lowering springs for it. I didn't have rims, but I had Del Sols. Off of a Honda Del Sol. Put those on, and I was kind of on my way. Of being the kind of stereotypical mid '90s to late '90s import racer, I guess, or whatever you want to call them, from Southern California. We used to go to Terminal Island over in Long Beach on Friday nights and on the weekends and run for $10. We used to drive down to Carlsbad Raceway and, sometimes, get in arguments and almost fights with the muscle car guys down there, drag race against them and try to earn respect. That's really how I got started with import cars, or I guess what really gave me that love, like from an early age, being in high school.
You're tinkering with your own cars, and you're racing them, and the racing is really why you were tinkering on them, right? To kind of get involved in that stuff.
Yeah. It came from like necessity, not having, spending all my money on the car payment and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Being 20 years old, didn't have much money to take it somewhere to pay to have someone, do something to make it go faster. So we would, whether a lot of failing, a lot of messing things up, but we would try to do things on our own, whether if it was, learning how to change the springs out to make the car lower, or, bolt on stuff, of course. And as time went on, we were like, okay, we're looking at Option Magazine and we're seeing that these guys are putting, or in Japan, that it has a, B16A twin cam motor. Some of these guys have Type R motors inside, or GSR motors inside their Civics. It looks like it fits right in there. And next thing you know, we heard that Vit Lam did it in a car, and they were charging like $10,000 for a motor and to stick it in the car, and we're like, there's no way we're going to pay for that. We went and looked at one that he did over at Speed Image over in Santa Ana, and we're like, yo, we could do this, So next thing you know, Jojo Kalos, a friend of mine that I met in Long Beach, we ended up doing one on his car. Next thing you know, we do one on my car, and we learned that it was actually pretty simplistic to do. Jojo Kalos, I ended up becoming a crew chief for him. We started traveling around the country in like 98, 99, and the year 2000, like the Naira racing circuit, IDRC, a couple of the Nopi events that they did.
Mm-hmm.
Doing that, managing the travel and managing the team, and trying to just let Jojo focusing on driving and tuning the DFI on the car, the engine management system. I started to see that I was really good at organizing and, kind of like playing the background in terms of production. And started to get to know Craig Lieberman, that was running Naira at the time for Super Street Magazine, who ended up going on to, being in the Fast and Furious movie and being the consultant on that. He taught me a lot in terms of like, how to produce these Naira events, these drag racing events that we were being a part of, and it just really sparked my interest. And I ended up parlaying that into working at Super Street Magazine about a year later in the end of 2000, not helping them out, but being the one in charge of producing the events that they were doing. They were doing a tour to Nopi. I don't know if you remember, the Nopi Nationals was a huge event once a year in September down in Atlanta, and Super Street Magazine would do this tour starting off in a couple different locations a couple days prior to help bring cars down to the Nopi event. One of the tours started in Philly, one started down in Miami, and one in Dallas. So I would organize this thing. And then a couple other small editorial events. We did that for a couple years, and then in 2004, John the Dairy, who happened to be the editor of the magazine at the time at Super Street, they're doing these trips to Japan, and they were already breaking stories in like 99 about drifting being the next big thing and stuff like that. And they're also talking about Time Attack. And John was like, man, let's throw a time attack out here. Let's do the same thing like they do in Japan. We'll throw it once a year. It'll be an editorial invite event only type thing. Let's do it the week after SEMA. Maybe some of the Japanese teams will stay longer and come out and run. And that's how we started Super Lap Battle back in 2004. John and I wrote the rule book. It was very heavily based off of what I knew at the time, which was drag racing. So even the Global Time Attack rule book today, which is heavily based off of the original Super Lap Battle rulebook, but updated, of course, to work with how things are now, is very, very drag race based. We say we have 4 classes, but they're more like, people say, oh, you have an enthusiast class, a street class, a limited class, and the unlimited class. And what I hear though is enthusiast tire class, street tire class, limited tire class, and unlimited tire class, because the main way that you break it out in drag racing is like, widths of tire.
Yeah.
As you know. So with us, we do the same thing. Depending upon widths of tire, depending upon, of course, tread wear, stickiness of tire is going to depend upon where you either get bumped up or bumped down in classing. So we don't limit horsepower, same thing like drag racing. If you want to come out and try to put 800 horsepower to the ground, and then the enthusiast class trim with an enthusiast 220 plus tread wear tire, good luck to you.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're going to go out there and have a slipping and sliding good time. But if you want to tire up, add some aero to that car that's got the 800 horsepower, now you're probably going to go out there and do some real special things out on the track in terms of times. Yeah, that's how I started to get interested in Time Attack, was back in 2004 out of just doing it for work with John and the guys at Super Street Magazine.
So Super Lap Battle was a Super Street Magazine event?
From the beginning. Also, utilizing a newly partnershiped magazine, Sport Compact Car at the time. The parent companies joined forces.
Okay.
So it was an editorial event in the beginning also with Sport Compact Car magazine.
Okay.
Of course, once that fell off and Super Street kind of absorbed that brand, it's more so, it became more of just a Super Street magazine event. And then over the last few years, it's kind of changed to where it encompasses all the brands there that they have, whether if it's Import Tuner, European Car, Super Street, and Turbo Magazine, and still even Sport Compact Car to a sense, in terms of at least their online properties.
Okay, interesting. I actually had no idea that they were like, I knew they attended the events. I did not know that they were like the ones that originally created it, or at least got the ball rolling, I guess.
Yeah, so Super Lap Battle, that brand name or whatnot, that event, it's owned by the Enthusiast Network, or actually by Super Street Magazine.
Okay.
If we fast forward a bit, I've done a bunch of different things in the industry after that. After I left Super Street, I worked for Hot Port Nights for a while, a couple different times, honing kind of the production skills, the touring skills. When I was working there, we were doing 21 to 23 big events a year across the country. So, a lot of logistics, a lot of traveling, a lot of moving pieces.
Yeah, and those are really big events, so there's a lot of people there, huh?
Oh yeah, especially at that time. It was still during it was the end of the heyday, I would say. 2007, 2008. Things really start changing for Hot Port Nights in 2009. They're making a steady comeback right now, which is nice to see. But it went through a lot of ownership changes, a property like that. So when that happens, it's easy to kind of lose its soul for a while.
Okay.
But the guy that owns it right now, Mike Minar, he's one of the original owners. So if anybody can bring it back to what it once was, it's definitely someone like himself. So that's good to see. But I worked there for a while. I ended up linking back up with John the Dairy and Ricky Chu and Mike Robledo and Will Rogie. They started up Raceboy TV around I think 2008 or 9. And I left Hot Port Nights to go help them out. Ended up being a failed venture, but it was a good learning experience. And it kind of parlayed me into what I'm doing now with Global Time Attack. I ended up around 2010, was meeting up with Christian Rado and a couple other guys that I used to know from drag racing that were now involved heavily in the Time Attack scene. They were at the time running at Redline, which had the original owners of it at the time. The year or two prior to that, they were doing events all over the country, or Time Attack competitions all over the country. I think 4 or 5 times around the country. And teams like World Motorsports with Christian Rado as a driver would travel to these events. So would some of the other teams back then, like Sierra.
AMS was always involved in that one as well,
Yes,
too.
yes, most definitely. And, I was hearing from these guys that it looks like, the writing was on the wall. Redline was having some problems financially. They weren't sure if they were going to continue on with the series or take a break for a few years or not. And it kind of looked like an opportune time to get back into Time Attack. That was the plan. Around 2010, I started working on a plan with an investor on getting back into this, coming up with a name, coming up with, what our plan of attack was going to be to set us apart and be different. And SEMA 2010 is when I launched it, or at least made the announcement. We held a press conference at SEMA. I think it was on a Thursday. Had about 50, 60 drivers in there, potential drivers, people that were interested, people that were running in, whether if it was different NASA regions around the country, but were interested in seeing what we had to offer and what our plans were. So, it definitely felt like a really good start. What we did that first season in 2011 was that we linked up with NASA on a national scale to be a sanctioned event series of NASA, so we could utilize their CCRs and they could sanction our rulebook.
Okay.
Felt like that would bring some legitimacy from off the bat with what we were doing, that we weren't just some ex-drag race guys that were trying to put on a track event or a time attack. And it also gave us an opportunity to start off that first year by doing time attack competitions around the country, like something that you brought up in the very beginning, that when we were talking that, we have, the event right now in May is Road Atlanta over in Georgia. Mm-hmm. And we've got another one in New Orleans at NOLA Motorsports Park. And then outside of that, we're always in California. But that first year and our second season, because of that NASA relationship that we had, we were able to pick and choose the different regions and work with the different regions on possibly doing different competitions there. So we had the first year we were at New Jersey Motorsports Park. We were at Autobahn Country Club outside of Chicago. And we did those places, or those two tracks, the first 2 or 3 seasons. And we also did Palm Beach one year with Formula Drift. And what we were doing was that I was using a lot of investment, or a lot of the capital that I had at the time. I felt to plant seeds in different places around the country of what we were trying to do. And a little bit of it, well, not a little bit, it was a gamble, which really didn't pan out in the beginning, but I feel like it's starting to now.
Yeah.
I was hoping that people were going to catch on, and I think everybody does, but I was hoping that people were going to catch on to what we were doing quicker than what they did. So I didn't want to just try to build something big in California like most people do from California and hope that people want to come out to it, and try to grow it big enough to where, then it's really easy to take it somewhere else. With this, I didn't feel like that was the right plan of attack due to Redline was already out doing events around the country. And then they stopped, and I didn't want to leave too much of a gap. So I figured if I could slide right in there, that I might get all that runoff of these teams that were already used to going to Redline, teams that were regional, and say, okay, well, now I can do this series. Okay, so what ended up happening was that because there was some faith lost and trust lost with Redline Time Attack, people just kind of looked at it like, well, Time Attack, regardless of who's doing it. So the first year or two, we had a lot of questions of just like, well, what makes you guys different? Redline seems to be having problems. They've kind of looked like they failed. Why are you going to succeed? Mm-hmm. Most people had a wait and see approach. They wanted to not sign up for our time attacks, but maybe just come out and watch, or wait until they were done and, look at the coverage and see what the turnout was and see what happened. And the few people that were signing up, they would talk to them, how did it go? So I learned early on that the most important thing for Global Time Attack was the driver, and making sure the ones that were coming out to support us and what we were doing and taking a chance with us, that they had a great experience and that it was safe and that it was professional and it was competitive and that they were promoted properly afterwards through at least the content that we control, which is at least our social media and our website. Mm-hmm. It's also been an uphill battle getting coverage for these teams and even coverage for Global Time Attack. Things are getting better now, but if we're talking about the first couple years, it was a lot of begging and pleading, and using a lot of old relationships and favors that I have from the guys at Super Street and other publications and people that have moved on to websites and whatnot to get them to cover or at least show what we were doing and what these cars were doing.
And I will say this, for years that you've done it, and you've even done this to the cars that we've brought out there, you guys, your team, I don't know who did it, but you would always make like really nice, like you'd take excellent like pictures, and then you'd put the Global Time Attack in the event, and you'd use like the people's cars as the marketing for the next event. And yes. I thought it was excellent work. Like, it takes a lot of time to do that, and I thought it was very good. And so the marketing you're doing was spot on. It's just, like I feel your pain. It's really hard to grow a series where there's, like there are established people such as like NASA and SCCA, and you're trying to niche off of that to like import people and not just import people, but you have domestic cars out there. There's Corvettes and stuff, but just the people that want to take it to the next level, I think, is really what you're shooting for, and it's a tough market to crack, huh?
Yes, it definitely is. And after that year two, we started making some big changes, and it's perfect that you brought up the domestic cars. Time Attack, of course, coming from Japan, and even the original Super Lap Battle rules, no push rods, basically no V8s. So we changed that for Global Time Attack, and we looked at it like, hey, some of the purists out there are going to balk at what we're doing, but at the same time, we're not in Japan. We're in the United States, and we're going to take from this and add to it what works for where we're at. And even as a business, I think a smarter business to open it up. And also something that used to always light a fire under me was that us versus them kind of mentality, even though, it was friendly, but it's fun to compete. And it's fun to feel sometimes like an underdog, maybe because you're not using a V8 in your car, but you've got a 4-cylinder or an inline 6 and it's turbocharged, and that's how you're going to make up for the displacement. So we opened up push rods, we opened up V8s, we started immediately getting more Mustangs, Corvettes, cars like that involved, and it's been great. They don't dominate, but they're very competitive. Sometimes they win, sometimes they don't. And there hasn't really been too many complaints about it. I think it's been super positive for the sport. Mm-hmm. That also, I believe, was when we started working with Super Street on an official level. When I started Global Time Attack back or launched it 2010 and got started in 2011, I called up my friends that were running Super Street Magazine at the time and said, hey, look, this is what I'm doing. I know you guys still do Super Lap Battle once a year in November still. It's not what it once was, but let's work together on this thing and let's make it really big again. Let's make it better than it ever was. I'm going to do my series regardless. I'm going to do anywhere from 4 to 8 events or Time Attack competitions a year regardless. Let's make Super Lap Battle where everything Global Time Attack does ends at the end of the year. We'll keep it the traditional date, the week after SEMA. Let's blow this thing up. I'm doing Time Attack competitions around the country. Let's see if we can start creating the need for these teams to want to start traveling out of state again and have these really big competitions where all the fast cars and teams and drivers are there at one time at the same day and see how it goes down. And they were into it, and we've been working together on it ever since, which has been great to partner up with them on that, I call it GTA Super Lap Battle or GTA SLB. And now the last couple of seasons or last couple of years, it's had 60 plus cars, and it's really felt like a nice, solid Time Attack competition finals for North America.
Mm-hmm. And it definitely is. Coming as a racer or someone building cars for this, that is how it's viewed from my perspective. So
good.
So have you ever doubted yourself and wondered if it wasn't going to work? How do you overcome that feeling and move forward?
Yeah, all the time. And I don't know if sometimes it's just stupidity that keeps me going. But honestly, I think it's passion. And it's just drive. I just don't want to give up on this. I tell the teams when we're sitting around sometimes after a competition, having a beer, if I'm fortunate enough to do so and have the time to do so, they're talking about their team, their car, what it did out on the track. The way I relate is what happened with the actual competition, the event, the production. And I explain to them that Global Time Attack is my car. It's each event that I do, each competition that we do, I want to make it better the same way that you guys want to go faster. I want to make it a more polished event. I want to make it better. I want to make the marketing better. And I'm only one person that works on it Monday through Friday, but I just am driven, to at least try to improve it a little by little each time. I'm not in it for a sprint. We've been doing this for a few years now, and I plan to be doing it for many more years. So, I'm not looking to try to change the scene overnight. I learned that on, the first couple seasons, spending a lot of money doing those events around the country. And like I said, it didn't really seem to be working out that well. But we're still here. That's the thing that keeps me going because, I want to make that improvement every time. I want to break our records for global time attack. I want to get more car counts. I want more drivers. I want more drivers walking away saying, man, I had so many opportunities for good, hot, clean laps out there. This is great. This is where I want to be. That's what keeps me going.
Awesome. What's the worst experience you've had in business?
Global time attack business or business in general?
Well, I guess you could do either, but usually, I guess global time attack stuff.
With global time attack, a big pet peeve of mine is putting something out there publicly that what we're going to do as a brand or as the series, and then not being able to do that. Okay. I've been wanting to throw a competition in Phoenix or in Arizona for a while now. A few years back, had an opportunity to do it, and we just didn't get enough signups. And it was the first and only time that I had to back out of a competition and cancel it publicly. And it's a super big thorn in my side. I want to say that I hate that it happened, but it had to happen. And it had to happen. It was a tough decision. But going on with it and potentially losing the amount of money that I was going to lose, it could have meant something different from what we're doing right now. And I didn't want to take that chance. So yeah, we had to put some egg in our face and eat it, and that's tough. And it's like I said, it's a sore subject, but I learned from it about being 100% sure about what we're gonna do. Until that, then we put it out there publicly.
Well, what's interesting about that is a lot of the people that do or have attended your races are from the Phoenix area. I mean, I know Tony is out there. He's like your steward, race steward, right? He's the inspector guy, and he's out of that area. So I can see the. You look at it from the perspective like, well, half the people attending my California event are coming from Arizona, so we can do an event in Arizona and get more people from further east. I can see that, but it just didn't pan out, huh?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And there was, again, I learned from it. There was factors, some key things. Like for one, at that time, I didn't have right now we have the Global Time Attack Pro Championship Series, which consists currently of 3 events.
And they're all in Western states, right?
Road Atlanta.
Okay.
We consider a pro event. Just prize money. It's 2+ days.
Oh, okay.
New Orleans in October, same thing. Pro event, prize money, 2+ days, and then Super Lap Battle at the end of the year, which is on the West Coast, Buttonwillow. Yep. Same thing. 2+ days, prize money, pro event. And there's their own separate points chase for those 3 pro events. At that time, with the Phoenix debacle, we were just doing, I had 5 to 7 or 5 to 8 events, and they were all pro events. Right? They were just global time attack competitions. I don't even think I had points at the time. But the way that we marketed them is that, I'm putting the GST car on there. I'm putting Tony's car out there, that's going to be there and race against these guys. So at that time, I wasn't bridging the gap. I wasn't getting a lot of people that felt like they could graduate from doing HPD track days and then saying, I want to start doing some time attack competition, but I'm not really ready for global time attack yet. That seems too hardcore. I don't want to run up against those guys. So they wouldn't sign up. Phoenix is what really jump-started us into thinking, we need to create another series, and it needs to be a pro-am. I either need to find someone to work with to do it, or we need to do it ourselves, but we need to have it be separate and have a separate points championship for it, and it needs to be marketed softer to the everyman driver out there and every woman driver out there. Otherwise, how are we going to get new people involved in this if we're maybe doing too good of a job at making it look like it's so hardcore and fast? Even though, Kevin, not everybody is that fast, right. And not everybody is that fast every day, so you always have a chance. But that was something that we learned with that Phoenix situation is like, we need to create a place for people to come out and feel welcome that they're not going to get the doors blown off of them, or, they're not going to be in the driver's meeting with these people that they consider pros when in reality, they're not. But they need to feel like there's a stepping stone to get to that point.
Okay.
And introducing the Pro-Am, it's been successful in that rate.
Okay, that's good. And so the Pro-Am stuff is mostly on the West Coast then, right? That's the one that you keep locally?
It is, because I can control it because I'm producing it.
Okay.
And I'll throw this out there. Anybody in any region that I would love to get back into, and I would love to do Pro-Ams in like the Pacific Northwest, or, even back in the South, or more so, I should say, Pacific Northwest, the Midwest, and the Mid-Atlantic. I would love to do Pro-Ams up there, but the Pro-Ams, the beauty of them is that they're normally one-day events, so we keep the cost down for everybody involved, meaning cost down for GTA in terms of travel. When they're on the West Coast, we drive to them, so sometimes I don't even need to get hotel rooms. And then for the teams, it's a one-day event, so a lot of times they don't need to get a hotel room. They can show up early in the morning, run all day, and be done by the end of the evening. For me to do a Pro-Am out of state, now the costs go up, so I would need probably to work with a partner to where maybe just a couple of us would fly in and make sure that it's a global time attack, but there's someone on the ground already locally that we could work with. So I've tried to do that. I've tried to find some people to work with. I'm just very picky. I'm very picky about the brand and making sure that if it says that this is a global time attack, that you walk away from it and it feels like a global time attack.
Yep. And I remember talking to you about, because the Dallas event you did at Texas Motor Speedway there was not a lot of cars, and that's our region to blame. Us Texas people, we suck apparently. But I remember talking to you about it, and you felt really turned off, and not that just Dallas was the only one, but some of the other, when you had lots of events, you kind of felt that it was spreading the market too thin, and then the people wouldn't want to go to the big events. And you kind of shrunk it down to just the two, and then you've since then added the NOW events, and now there's three again. But it's kind of interesting, like the kind of the path you've taken from, like these experiences on how what works and what doesn't work, because it really is hard. I mean, I don't think there's a manual for doing this. There's not like you're trying to make your own market. It's tough, right?
Yeah, and you're right too. I guess it's funny. I haven't looked back at it like that, but yeah, I guess you could look at Global Time Attack as somewhat of a model of trying a couple of different things, within a 6-year or 5-year period. In the beginning, we tried starting off nationally and doing 6 events around the country and trying to build it that way. And it didn't seem to be working. And I had to make a decision quick because I couldn't afford to do that no more. And which I'm probably going to have the same conversation right now that I had with you before, but I looked to what I felt worldwide, our biggest competition, which were really not even competition to them, but I look at them as competition because I strive to be as good, if not better than them, but World Time Attack Challenge in Australia. Once a year. It's a big Super Bowl time attack event. Once a year, people in the United States get more excited about time attack for 1 week than they ever do all year about an event that happens in Australia. So that was something that in a way was kind of annoying me. Like, gosh, what can't these same people at Speed Hunters and at all these other places get just excited about U.S. time attack? They act like it doesn't exist until once a year when it happens in Australia. Mm-hmm. So that was something that made me think like, okay, maybe we just need to make these things once or twice a year and that's it. Because the one thing I noticed is when I would talk to the teams and the drivers, they couldn't afford to go to the 6 events around the country that I was doing.
It is very expensive.
Yeah. So if I did 1 or 2, they could afford to do that. That's what we started doing. We started just doing Road Atlanta in the beginning of the year, or in the first half of the year, and then second half of the year, Super Lap Battle. And we did that for 2 or 3 seasons, or maybe just 2 seasons in a row, and that worked out real good. And then last year introduced New Orleans. And again, it's kind of a test bed. We might not continue to do it. It just depends on how it goes. Road Atlanta, we like. It's a good model. It works. Super Lap Battle, it works. I'd like to have a third one, but at the end of the day, I know we don't have to. Maybe more Pro-Ams around the country is the better answer that feeds these 2 or 3 mega competitions. I know I'm kind of jumping around, but it was interesting this year that I don't know how much you know about the Speed Ring by HKS event.
Yeah, I
that
followed it.
happened.
I mean, I knew it was coming. I did not attend it, but I know it happened.
But just that happening, them wanting to do that and them doing it, is definitely a positive sign for Time Attack in North America. They wouldn't have invested all that money to produce that event and to put up all that cash, 20 grand cash, to beat Nob Taniguchi, and then not just that, but every other first place winner in all the other classes won $1,000 cash.
Wow. Were you involved in that event or just go to
We
it?
were.
Okay.
Global Time Attack was hired to sanction the Time Attack competition and to produce it.
Okay.
So it wasn't our event and it wasn't a part of our series, but Global Time Attack sanctioned it and we were there and operated it. So to ensure that, it was a solid, professional, and fair competition, especially when there was that much money up for stakes. So, a couple things that tells me. One, a brand that I grew up being a total fanboy of in terms of HKS, it felt good that they wanted to invest this money in the U.S. Time Attack scene, that they look at it like this is something cool to do here in the U.S. I feel that that's great for Time Attack in general. And then on the other hand, personally, it feels great that they came to Global Time Attack as being the ones to look at to sanction this thing and to make it legit. So that feels really good too.
And you can feel good about the fact that the car that did beat the HKS car was a Global Time Attack regular, Life Motorsports, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's funny. It's that it came down to the very last session on the last day, those two cars battling it out. I didn't think it would turn out like that, but it really came down to just the last 3.5 to 4 minutes of that last session to where, Life got the time that they were looking to get all weekend, finally beat Nob. Nob's just got 2 minutes to go out there and just enough time for one hot lap. And he stayed consistent with the 133s, wasn't able to get into the 132s to beat Life. So when that was happening, I'm down there on grid and I'm walking up to each one of the guys, Tony Zerka that you brought up, Bob Apodaca, and I'm telling them, guys, when and if Cole beats Nob in this session right here, we've got to play it cool. We know that, that's the guy that we know and we're pulling for him because it's someone that supports Global Time Attack for all these years, but we got to play it cool. No jumping around. Don't be too happy, And, I didn't know what was going to happen. And man, we got the call from Timing and Scoring over the radio and he's like, he just did it. It's official. Call it out over the radio or call it out over the intercom or the PA. And, we just all were like, all right, man, that is great. I was going back and forth. What was going to be the cooler story? That Nob and HKS had come out and no one could catch them? Or is it a cooler story that a car from the U.S. actually does just barely beat them and it creates now an opportunity for a round two?
That's an interesting point.
That's what I think. And I think too that in a way it brings some validity to what these drivers and teams are out here doing in the United States. They obviously know what they're doing a little bit if they were able to beat a car like that. If HKS came over here and just wiped the floor with everybody, it's just kind of like, oh, well, yeah, of course. That's the thing.
We expected that, right?
We expected it. And then obviously we don't know what we're doing out here. But you know what? Obviously these guys, they know what they're doing. So again, it makes the competition level that much higher. So it's great. Cool.
So what's something you're doing right now that has you fired up?
The schedule for next year.
Is it official yet?
Not well. I mean, I've got official dates. Road Atlanta is always that Mother's Day weekend in May, and that's not going to change. Super Lab Battle is always the Thursday and Friday after SEMA. That's not going to change. I could tell you the dates right now. Let me look them up. I've got them. But New Orleans is a soft date right now, but it looks like May 12th and 13th, 2017 will be the Drift Atlanta event featuring Formula Drift and also Global Time Attack. And then possibly October 7th and 8th, 2017, GTA will be back at NOLA Motorsports Park for NOLA Speed and Style.
So that's October. That's not too much before...
Yeah, that's something that I don't like that much, how close that it is to SEMA and how close that it is to Super Lap Battle. but that's the best date that NOLA Speed and Style can really get right now.
Okay.
So we're making the best of it.
Okay.
And then November 9th and 10th, 2017 will be the GTA Super Lap Battle at Buttonwillow. So, that stuff's cool and that stuff makes me happy. It's nice to be ahead of the curve a little bit this year and beginning to solidify those dates now. But what I'm fired up about is, what's going to happen with this Speed Ring events next year? Is there going to be another one? Will there be more than one? So that's got me fired up. There's some possibilities of, doing some things at some other big tracks next year. Not really stuff that I could talk about yet, but it's exciting. It's an exciting time. It's kind of more exciting than ever for Time Attack right now.
Cool.
Now it's all relative. It doesn't mean it's gangbusters or anything like that, but it's a little better than it's ever been, and that's nice. And again, like I said before, it's a minute for the marathon. So even just small little accomplishments and small positive things are a big win to me.
Okay. So I want to take a second and pause for some information. Owning a shop is difficult, so we created My Shop Assist to help you manage the various jobs. Whether you run a machine shop, a performance tuning shop, build off-road trucks, or even do powder coating, My Shop Assist can help. It is completely online and will help you schedule the jobs, log time on each task, track parts orders, and take pictures of the work. You can even export your jobs from My Shop Assist into QuickBooks as invoices. So if you're interested in improving operations at your shop, check out myshopassist.com to start your 30-day free trial. So let's talk about GTA some more. So have you actually written a formal business plan for this? You said you had an investor, and usually that's something they look for, but like a path forward, do you have that set in stone?
In the very beginning, yes, I did. Had a plan written out, that was for the first year and then for year 2 and 3. But I'll be honest with you, I think maybe 6-7 months into year 1, I wouldn't say that all went out the window, but it definitely changed.
Yeah.
And I'd probably say after or during year 2, it was kind of decided between myself and the investor that, this is definitely a passion play, and that we were going to do what we could to keep it going. And, that kind of time frame was definitely around the time of we talked about the Phoenix situation happening where we had to back out of that, realizing maybe changing our plan of being a national series of doing multiple events around the country to trying to create more of a Super Bowl atmosphere for Time Attack with just doing 1 or 2 big ones a year and supplementing the rest of the year with a Pro-Am series to bring in new people. So around that time frame is really when it changed. But in a way, I think it changed for the better in terms of that it became more of a longevity play.
Okay. How many employees do you have, or is it just yourself?
It's just myself. Monday through Friday, I have a crew of about 6 to 8 people, depending upon how big of the event is that we're doing, that help me out on site. They're ridiculously invaluable. Guys like Tony Zerka, Bob Apodaca, John Villa, Paul Kuzma. I'm going to forget some people. Amanda Gift, but people that they're the team. They're a GTA.
Yeah, and it makes sense you don't have to have all these people year-round because you need the help at the event mostly, right? Setting it up is all you, right?
Yes, exactly. I've had some people help me out here and there when I could afford it, and of course, I'm not a Photoshop wizard, so I have a friend of mine, Sean Baker, that actually lives out in Pennsylvania that does all of the marketing for us. So, a lot of times I'll give him some ideas on how I want something to look. And he normally nails it on the first or second try. So that helps out a lot. And he works for ridiculously cheap, which helps out. So that's really
Send
nice.
him a box of ramen every once in a while, right?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Okay, so what are your primary sources of revenue? Is it sponsors, entry fees, spectators, merchandise, a little bit of everything?
It's sponsors and entry fees are the 2 main revenue streams. It's what we survive off of. Entry fees pretty much are what pays usually for like what the track costs to rent and whatnot for these events. And then the sponsorships that, we try to nail down the end of the year for the next year is what bridges all the gaps in between the events, and it pays for travel and whatnot. Don't get much spectator fees at a lot of these tracks. It's just a lot of the way the business plans work in terms of like a lot of the partnered events and things like that. Most of them work out to where we don't collect any spectator fee.
But it seems to make sense where you want people there. You don't want to turn them away by not having to spend $20 to get in the gate, right?
You are 100% right. Obviously, if we ever get to that point, then of course I'd love to charge a spectator fee as long as people are happy to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
We're not there yet. Some events like Drift Atlanta, you pay a spectator ticket for that event, but you get, us during the day, and you get Formula Drift in the afternoon and the evening, and that's mainly what people feel like they're paying for is, the Formula Drift content or competition, and then GTA is like a cherry on top if they want to come earlier in the day and check it out if they're a true, like motorsports fan. Merchandise is something that I'm trying to get into. It's one of those things that is just low on my list of to-dos in terms of like, what must get done,
Right.
And when you're doing something like this by yourself, just a lot of things that must get done, and some things just are on idle, So I'm working with some friends right now that are trying to help me out with the merchandising. I think we've got, the brand at least to a place to where, we're not hoonigans or nothing like that, but I think we could sell a couple T-shirts and hats to some fans. So we're working on some designs right now. Hopefully in the next few weeks to a month, we'll see something online of some stuff that we have, some new shirts and stuff like that, I hope.
There you go. You could find somebody that will you can license the name out to and just take a cut of everything they sell and let them set up a booth at the event, right?
It's kind of something like that, yeah. It's we've got our social media fan base up to some decent numbers, and these guys are telling me that they've worked with brands that are smaller and they've, moved a little bit of product, and again, not where they're making a ton of profit off of it. But for me, I still look at it as just even marketing. And if I can get someone to pay for something that's going to market our brand, then that's even better, But I'd love to see, more people wearing Global Time Attack shirts and hats that want to. And we get a decent amount of people that ask us, at each one of our events and even online, where's the gear? Why don't you guys sell anything?
Okay, so the advertising and marketing you do, where is it? Like, how are you advertising these events?
I've dabbled here and there with print. I'm probably going to start that up again next year a little bit. But it's been real small in terms of like what we do. Predominantly what I do is social media marketing and advertising, whether if it's on Facebook. I do a lot of targeting ads on Facebook for the areas that we're throwing a competition at. I've started to work a little bit with Instagram as well, but I play more with Facebook, to be honest with you. And then we do a lot of direct marketing and, using email lists and even hard mail lists. This is our 6th season, so we built up a decent database of drivers, especially those first couple years doing events around the country. We built up a good database of drivers that we could reach out to, directly and explain to them what we're doing, when we're doing it, where we're doing it, and who helps us get there.
Do you reach out to shops at all?
Yeah, we do. Be honest with you, I need to do a better job with that. But yeah, we do.
What do you find to be the most successful? Is it the like the print media, or is it the just social media stuff? Is it word of mouth? What is the most successful way that you are advertising?
I'd probably say in terms of what I can prove would probably be the Facebook ads. They actually work out pretty good for us, especially because, I forget exactly when it was, whether if it was a year or two ago, your Facebook fan pages or business pages don't show up in the people that are a fan of it news feeds like they used to, unless you're paying for it now.
Yep.
So, I don't have to spend a ton of money on it, but I feel like if I'm spending $3 to $5 a day, for maybe 60 days or something, or 30 days, 45 days leading up to an event, it's not a ton of money and it helps out a lot. Even if it helps out getting it up in front on their news feed to someone that already likes us, but they're not getting the news or not getting the post. So that's been working out pretty well for us. And, word of mouth, though, I'd probably say is the absolute best, because I normally always know when that works, because someone will get a hold of us or get a hold of me from whatever channel, and it's the first thing they normally say is, well, I know so and so that runs with you guys, or I met so and so that runs with you guys, and I trust them, they trust you, so now I trust you. And there's nothing better than that. Our main thing, is the driver and the teams and their experiences, because when they walk away from the weekend and walk away from the competition, I obviously can't control how they feel about what went down, and how they talk about it to people. So I want, again, for them to have a safe and professional and a competitive atmosphere, that they want to return to, and that they want to tell people that this was a good thing. We like it. We had a good time. You guys should try it out.
Cool. Yeah. And I learned about it from just liking Time Attack stuff. So I guess forums is really where I found out about it. And then I've been following you really since when I knew about Redline Time Attack. And then when you kind of rose from the ashes of them falling apart, that's kind of when I started following you. So, I've always told people about the event. It's not close for us being in Dallas. We're kind of in the middle of nowhere, except for the NAL event. So it's not easy for us to get there, but it's definitely, of all the Time Attack events that I've done, I think it's the coolest one. We do a lot of NASA stuff. NASA's, local and it's the same people every time. So you kind of have a good gauge of if you're making improvements or not, but it's not nearly to the level of, these people take it super seriously at Super Lab Battle. I remember seeing crews, they have headsets, they're radioing times, and they have 3 guys checking tire pressures and tire temperatures and looking over the engine after one lap. And it's just amazing the level of professionalism that these amateur Time Attack teams do. So.
Yeah, it is. It's great. Sometimes it's almost comical, in a way. But at the same time, as funny as it may sound, I strive for one day where the majority of the teams look like that. It would be crazy, but I enjoy that they take it that serious. And, it's also, as a weekend at the track or what have you is a good time. And if you're not having a good time, you're totally doing it wrong. Even as competitive and as serious as it is, and it looks like most of these people are not having a good time, but they're having a blast because it's such a serious thing. And they're working together as a team. And I think some of these teams have a rough time turning help away. Who doesn't want to go help out for the weekend with this super fast bitchin' car? And, what if it clicks off a record time and you're a part of it that weekend? So, or even if it's just a personal best that you guys can talk about until the next time around. So yeah, it's definitely, it's cool to see. There's been many times, Kevin, that I've walked around these competitions, when things are just humming and going real well. And I'll turn to my girlfriend Amanda, that's one of our official photographers, and I'll just have a tear in my eye, and just be this is great, this is what's up, this is what's supposed to be happening. Look at this, look at how good of a time that people are having, and again, it's one of those things that it's that crazy long drive that you had on the golf course that keeps you coming back or something like that,
Right. Okay, how many hours a week are you working on it?
I'd guess, I don't know, 50 50 hours. It's definitely a full-time job.
Okay, definitely full-time plus some, sounds
yeah,
like.
Yeah. And especially because of social media aspect, you know?
Yeah, you're doing it at home, you're doing it everywhere you're at, no matter what, right?
Yeah, whenever you can. If you want to try to stay on like every 4 to 6 hour kind of commitment, you know, then you're doing it all the time.
Uh-huh. And you said you have a girlfriend, but do you have any other family, any kids or anything like that?
No, I don't. I have a younger brother who has a wife, and they had their first child. So I have a niece. She's about 5 months old now, Lola. She's great. And my mom and my dad and my stepmom and my stepdad, they're all still around. All live in California. Parents are California natives. I'm a California native.
So really, it makes it easy that you don't have kids that are keeping you stuck. You can travel around and go to these events and not have to worry about it, right?
Gosh, Alex, since I got out of high school and, started doing the import drag racing around the country, I kind of feel like I've been traveling ever since, for all this time. And yeah, it's that lifestyle hasn't been super conducive to relationships or having kids. Yeah. So that hasn't really happened for me yet. Not ruling it out. Being a man, I could still have a child at 41, but Luckily, my fiance is 6 years younger than me, so we'll see what happens.
Okay. And then the question that everybody cringes at: does the pay justify the time spent?
You know, for my case, I'd have to say it does. I can't complain. I really can't. I'm happy about the situation that I have with Global Time Attack and being able to work on it as many hours as I do and to still figure out a way to live in Southern California.
Okay. And what are the primary tools for your trade, like as far as like running the business? I'm guessing a phone and email would be the biggest two, but
yeah,
what are you using?
Internet. I guess that's being connected. Yeah, the internet, my iPhone, my iPad, and my MacBook. Yeah, WordPress for the website, and Facebook. I hate to say it, but Facebook is a huge tool for us. Forums aren't as popular as they used to be. So many people just use Facebook, and
I'm one of them. Haven't been on a forum in probably 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah,
so.
No, we own Time Attack forums. For one, I just don't even have any time to curate it and moderate it. Mm-hmm. And two, barely anybody was even going on it anyways anymore. Everybody just gravitated to going over to Facebook, forming different groups on Facebook. So I've just spent more of my time there to communicate with the teams. I could put something out on our private Global Time Attack Facebook group, and every driver that's ever driven with us, and most drivers that want to drive with us, they're on it and they see it, and it's real quick, and I can respond. So Facebook's has been a pretty major tool for us.
Okay, let's take another break here, and then we'll continue on with our last long answer questions. The goal of Do It For a Living is to give you insight to how others have become successful in this industry. Another thing we created to help with this is our Essentials of Operating a Shop seminar. This new class from EFI University is a one-day management seminar to help aftermarket automotive shop owners operate their business more efficiently. We cover various topics including employee management, accounting, marketing, purchasing capital equipment, and many more. We are holding our next class in Los Angeles, California on December. We are holding our next class in Indianapolis, Indiana at the PRI show on December 7th. For more information, go to EFI101.com and check out the Essentials of Operating a Shop page. Be sure to sign up using coupon code DIFAL for $50 off. Okay, what's something you struggle with in business, and how do you deal with it, Jason?
I'd probably say time management is tough.
A very common answer.
Is it? I'm sure it is. Yeah. Time management. Figuring out what to spend most of my time on. Figuring out what's most important to spend most of my time on, and also something that we touched on before, deciding what maybe you're not going to do because there's not enough time, mm-hmm. and having to learn how to be okay with that, especially with something like this brand. And for me, with my experience, I take it very personal. I probably shouldn't say, but I hear what people say out there. I see what people say. I take it personal. I want everybody to like us. No, I know that's not possible, but and again, I want to make it better every time. And sometimes when I feel like I'm not making it better or fast enough, it's a little discouraging to me.
And do you have any issues? Like I would always. This is what I thought would be the hardest thing to do is. I feel like some of these teams get very catty towards each other, and you're almost acting as like a, the recess monitor sort of thing. Like,
oh yeah, that happens. That can happen, and that's tough because you're put in the middle, and you're obviously, you're the sanctioning body, so you're obviously taking the middle ground. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you've got to enforce rules. You got to enforce track etiquette and just track logic, and things and safety. And sometimes you have to tell someone something that they don't want to hear. Or a lot of times you have to. And that's it. And that's just how it's got to be. And those are tough things to do. And yeah, sometimes playing a parent to a couple different people is an awkward situation, but it comes with the territory of producing events or producing a competition, whether if it is time attack or drag racing or a car show even.
I think everybody's aware of what happens in NASCAR, and it's just on a smaller level, right?
Right. Most definitely. There's a lot of it that goes on, and again, people take it serious. So, a big thing that we run into is someone making somebody unhappy out on the track, maybe impeding their progress or getting in the way or not letting them pass. And a lot of times it's, the guilty party doesn't even realize that they were doing it, or doesn't realize how bad or poorly that they were doing it, or that they made the wrong decision. And it's just communication, sitting someone down, explaining it to them. Those are tough situations. And a lot of time that buck stops with me at the track, because when someone's in the heat of the moment, they want to talk to who they feel is in charge, and that's normally me. So yeah, I kind of dread those radio calls sometimes. JD, where you at? What's your 20? I need you to talk to somebody over here. It's like, oh boy, here we go. What happened out there? Tell me what happened.
All right, so you touched on it a little bit for the 1-year plan as far as what events are going on. Do you have anything as far as like reaching out to, like we touched on this as well, where you're primarily imports, but have you done anything more to reach out to the domestic guys, get more of those guys out to these events?
Nothing direct or specific as much as maybe just working with the teams that have been supporting us and coming out, and also with the shops that support them and the shops that support us. But I haven't done a whole lot outside of that, to be honest with you. A lot of the growth that I'm looking at down the road, like past next season, would be us holding some competitions internationally.
Okay.
Getting a lot of interest from other parts of the world, other countries, to somehow hold a global time attack competition in their country, or even maybe a series. So I'm looking at how to make that happen.
Other than having international people in the States, you want to actually have a global time attack series, huh?
Yes. And it's more so, I'm more focused on what we're doing here in North America. I want to be the premier series and the premier time attack competitions and sanctioning body here in North America. That's really my main goal. Outside of that, if there's interest, which there has been interest to take it outside of North America, which I'm open to doing, and maybe it's just more for the personal experience, of being able to take the crew and being able to go to a different country and do this. It would be pretty interesting. I think it would be a lot of fun. I think it could also, in a reverse way, spark a lot of interest of international teams coming here to the States.
Yeah, and several of the United States teams that have gone to Australia. But
yes.
I can't think of any of the Australian guys that have come to the States yet, have they?
Not that I know of.
Not that I know of either. Maybe that'll happen. Maybe you can make that happen.
It's a possibility. I know Ian Baker at World Time Attack Challenge. Him and I are both very friendly. He's a cool guy. A lot of fun. I like what he's doing. And he's been an open book with me in terms of how they've been successful, what they do, how they do it, and how they got started and what they went through. So it's been nice to know him throughout this process, and it's also nice to know that both him and myself keep the possibilities open on one day maybe there could be a joint event somehow, whether if it's here in the States or maybe somewhere else. So you never know. I think that's the best thing really, is just to keep options open, especially because especially in North America, it's a niche scene. Yeah. And it's really got nowhere to go but up.
It's definitely going up too. I see it's definitely going up. And I just thought of this. At the last Super Lap battle, you actually did some live feeding stuff as well, right?
Yes. That's something that we've been trying to introduce back. The first couple of years we were doing it, but it was very expensive, especially 5 years ago. Things have changed so much.
You can do it on your phone for free now, right?
Phone for free. So that's one big thing that's different. So yeah, we're working with Racer Connect this season on providing a platform, just like what you said, that you could use your phone and you could live stream from your own phone, in your car or even from your pits. You could go with an upgraded system where it uses a GoPro and then uses like a MiFi unit to get the signal out there. And then they've got a few trackside cameras that are HD. And we're working our way towards eventually having a host to kind of string the whole production along. But again, we're getting there, but the live stream will definitely, in years to come, and even next year, will play a more important role with what we're doing and getting the content out there live. with what we're doing.
Yeah.
We post our times live right now through the Race Monitor application and then on our website.
Which is nice. I like that because I use that one.
Yeah, so that helps out. But it's nice to also have like a visual. So it'd be great to have the type of production that, like, let's say a Formula Drift or a World Time Attack Challenge. They have pretty good live stream productions, but I know what those things cost. We're just not there yet. But we're working on it.
Yeah, I just watched it just this last weekend. I think the Shift Sector event in Oregon or wherever it was at.
Yes.
They had a live stream as well, and they had a host, and it's actually pretty good. And I don't know, what kind of effort and money goes into that, but it was pretty impressive to be able to have. They were able to switch cameras, and they had cameras on track, and they had cameras in a car, and they had. I guess on the grid is the one that I was watching the most, but yeah, it was pretty neat. And I remember the one you did last year was most of them were like GoPros in cars, which is the coolest part. But you didn't have a host, and you just had to kind of select one of the cameras. Is how it worked.
Yes, exactly. It was very it was up to the user to pick camera feeds that they want to watch. But I'm very transparent. We just can't afford it yet. But we hope to get there. And not to sound like a salesman, but any potential sponsors out there that want to help us out,
there are lots of camera people, and I'm sure they need help getting their cameras out too, right?
Yeah, very true, very true.
Okay,
but back to your question about what maybe makes us successful, other people haven't thought about, is, to put it short, maybe just pinpointing that one most important thing in your business that, if all else fails, that if you could do that right and do it better than anybody else, can that be enough to set you apart? And for us, I think it's the driver experience. And for anybody else's business, I think there's one or two things that you could find out or figure out which are, your most important elements, and focus on being the best at those.
Okay. And let's move on to the quick answer questions before we close this thing out. So what's a game-changing product you've seen in the last year? There's
some cameras now that are not GoPro. I forget the name of them. They're like Solary or something like that. That they're the size of a GoPro. It's an action camera, but they will feed live right from the camera. I think that's kind of
like a cell phone, but it's just a tiny little camera.
Exactly.
Huh? Okay.
Exactly. So think of it as a GoPro and the cell phone put together, where now it could take that feed directly up onto the internet. So for like what we do, I think that's definitely a game changer.
Okay. What software are you using daily?
If WordPress is considered software, I use that daily.
That's definitely one of them. Mm-hmm.
All the Google Documents, all the
Gmail,
Google
Drive,
Doc stuff,
that kind of stuff.
all that I use every day. Yeah.
Okay. And what's your favorite app that you use daily?
Yeah, Instagram's been really good for GTA.
Okay.
Investing in the photography for all these years has helped out. I've got so many cool pictures, even from 2011. That sometimes I put out there, and it's great photography. The first couple seasons, we had Larry Chen was shooting photos for us, so I've got a lot of cool stuff that he shot, and it works out really good for Instagram.
Okay, and what's your favorite shop tool? And I guess this could apply to non-shop stuff too, but a tool of your trade, I guess.
I would like to say the dyno.
That's my favorite tool now too. We bought one last year, and I've used one at other shops many times, but having it in your own shop makes it very awesome. So,
yeah, and got the guys over here at World Motorsport just put in such an amazing all-wheel drive Mustang dyno, and it's in this soundproof room, and it's got these crazy evac systems and this super huge fan that matches wind speed up to 100 miles an hour. It's connected to the dyno. It's insane. If you're ever out here and you want to use a dyno, hit me up.
Okay. And what kind of car are you driving?
I drive a 1998 Honda Civic coupe.
Oh, yeah, sweet. I got a 2002 Honda Civic 4-door. They get great gas mileage. I don't really care what it looks like, though. So
it gets amazing gas mileage. Yeah, it does.
All right, so let's close this thing out here. What's the future of automotive performance?
It's going to be an interesting place, the influx of electric vehicles, electric hybrids, and, rules and regulations in terms of fossil fuels in the future. I think that's really like the future. Is it's kind of unknown in a way.
Are you going to have a Tesla running at one of your events here?
You never know. We were thinking about doing an E-class, an electronic class, or even a hybrid class or something like that,
Here's the trick. Here's the trick. the P80 or P90 or P100D is the all-wheel drive class, and the regular one is just the rear-wheel drive class, and it doesn't really matter because it doesn't matter how much horsepower you have, right?
You're right.
So you don't even need it. You don't even need an electric class. They have pretty
wide tires. They'd probably fall into the limited class. They're just the limited class, probably on the width of their tires, and probably wider than 285s. Awesome. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Of course, someone like myself that holds these track events where they're, we do have a street car class, but in the more competitive classes, they're cars that are built dedicated for time attack or for track. So they're not having to go by the rules of the road in terms of, smog and regulations and stuff like that. But, yeah, the future performance, that's a tough one. Okay.
And how do we connect with you and your company?
You could find us on the internet at globaltimeattack.com. You could also search Global Time Attack on Facebook and find us there. And, that's also our handle on Instagram and Twitter.
Okay, so you're doing them all, huh?
We're everywhere for the most part, just not on Snapchat yet. I don't think I'm going to do it.
I don't use it either, but I don't use Twitter either. All right. Well, Jason, I really appreciate you taking some time to talk with us.
Thank you very much, Kevin. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Do It for a Living. You can find out more about this guest, this show, and even details about what we just talked about at our website, doitforaliving.net. Check out the Facebook page at facebook.com/doitforaliving and tell us who you want to hear from. And most importantly, subscribe to the podcast. Click subscribe.